So let me actually read part of Genesis 6. This is the ESV version. I'll read the first 4 verses, which is really the section that really jumps out at me. It says, "When men began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown." So there are so many different views about this. The traditional Augustinian view is that the sons of God were actually the sons of Seth, the descendants of Seth, and the sons or the daughters of men were the daughters of Cain. And there's, decent arguments for that. They bring up Genesis 4 or 5. Is it 4 or 5? I think it's 5, where at one point they start calling upon the Lord. I can't find it right now. But the argument is that from Seth's line, they started to call upon the name of the Lord, and therefore they are all sons of God. They're children of God, whereas Cain strayed, and Cain is considered the daughters of men. Well, from my point of view, the argument is that, and I look at the Hebrew, and that's one of the cool things that I encourage everyone to do, is we have tools now to actually be able to get into some of the original language. So I love doing that. And I don't have any formal training, and I'm not, I didn't go to seminary, and I'm not all that, but I have the tools. I have Doug Hamp, who's he's a Hebrew scholar, so he kind of, guides me in some of these things if I have questions. But you look at Genesis 6:4, and the sons of God, when translated into Hebrew, is B'nai Ha Elohim. And Elohim is a word that actually most people reference to as God,
Right.
as the God. But in reality, Dr. Michael Heiser has pointed out that it's more than that. It just really, to sum it up, it signifies a place of residence. So even demons and ghosts and stuff are considered, or are called Elohim in the Hebrew, in the Bible. And so when you say sons of God, what are we really talking about? Are we talking about just the sons of Seth, human beings, or something else? And when you look at other places that have that B'nai Ha Elohim phrase, it happens in Job 3 times, I think it happens in Job. And again, actually, is that it? I don't remember quite off the top of my head, but I know it's in Job.
I think there is another one, but I don't remember where it is.
Yeah. I made a whole video about this too. It's sad that I can't recall stuff. But so that's the view, that the sons of God, or at least my view, is that the sons of God were actually fallen, divine, angelic beings, these beings that were supposed to sort of look over humanity in some sense, but they saw the daughters of men. They saw them, they were attracted to them. They decided to commit a grave sin, which is to mate with them and contaminate. Basically what happened was it contaminated the human race. And we're talking about genetics. And I know this is really uncomfortable for people who aren't used to this topic or conversation, but it's there. And it goes back to Genesis 3:15, where the serpent, or actually after the fall, God tells the serpent, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. And so the word seed is talking about offspring. And so, it starts to raise different questions like, wait a minute, we're talking about Satan's offspring, the serpent's offspring, the serpent's seed. What's that all about? Is this just a metaphor, or are we talking about something else? And when you look at it from that context, it makes sense that in Genesis 6, the human race becomes contaminated, because Satan's plan was effectively to ruin the seed of the woman, because that's where the Messiah would come. The seed of the woman was going to crush his head. Well, I don't want my head crushed, so why don't we destroy the seed of the woman? And Satan almost did it. I think he was very close, but he spared Noah, and his sons, and the humanity was able to go on because God's promises can't be broken. So I mean, that's in a nutshell. I mean, I can get into all kinds of details if you want me to, but overall, my view is that the sons of God were actually fallen angels, and the daughters of men were just that. They were daughters of men, men being Ha-Adam, so where Adam comes from. And the Nephilim were the giants of old, these beings that were not meant to be. And they were around, and there's a possibility that they will be around again. And I think it's a tough one for people to swallow. But I will say this, and just to tie it into some of the things going on culturally at the moment, and I think when this airs, actually, I'm not exactly sure when this movie's coming out, but Noah's Ark, the movie with Russell Crowe, is supposed to hit the silver screen, if you will, in a few months from when we're recording this. And in the film, they really take on that fallen angel view. I think they have Semyaza, who is one of the leaders of the Watchers that's described in the Book of Enoch.
Seriously?
I think so, yeah.
Wow.
I believe Nick Nolte is playing Semyaza.
Oh my goodness, Nick Nolte.
So I mean, these are rumors. I'm not sure if that's exactly what's going to go on, but it seems like that's what's going to happen. And I think that this film is going to start a conversation about Genesis 6 within the church, and the debate is going to become heated, and it's going to be interesting to see where people land on this, because it's right there in Genesis 6 of what's going on, and the
TV told you.
Right. And that's the tough part, is that, it'll be really easy for the church to say, oh, see, there you go. Culture again, trying to tell you, teach you occult things and trying to twist the Bible and all this stuff. And a lot of it is true. They do twist the Bible, but at the same time, it's like, hey man, when there's truth, you got to pick out the grains of truth that are actually presented in something like this. And I'm not saying Semyaza was a sixth arm, because I think this guy has 6 arms and he's like this huge giant thing. I don't know if Semyaza had 6 arms or whatever, but there's some truth.
6 arms or 6 wings?
I think they gave him 6 arms.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure why, but I mean, yeah, there's tons of scriptural evidence for this, and I actually made a video. It's called "Who Are the Sons of God in Genesis 6? The Sethite View Debunked." It's about a half-hour video that tackles this topic. And one of the things that people always say is, oh, you in order for you to use this argument, you have to use the Book of Enoch, you have to use the Book of Jasher, you have to use all these extra biblical texts. And I show in the video that no, you don't. I use just the Bible, and I show that the fallen angel view makes sense. And there's a lot of evidence, not just in the Old Testament, but a lot of evidence in the New Testament as well. And I think one of my favorite ones is in, I think it's 1 Corinthians 11:10. 1 Corinthians 11:10, where it says, that is why a wife ought to have a symbol of authority on her head because of the angels. And we talked to Michael Heiser about this on Canary Cry Radio about a year ago. But, it's just in there, like randomly. The whole passage is not about that, but all of a sudden Paul just drops in like, hey, you better have a covering on your head, women, because of the angels. And you're kind of left with like, what are you talking about? But if first century, the audience, the people that read that letter at that time would probably know exactly why he said because of the angels. So those are little tidbits that are in the scriptures that really give credence to this idea. And then, to address one of the major refutations that people have about this, they always go to Luke, where it talks about, I think Luke or Matthew, where it talks about the angels don't mate, right? And angels don't marry in heaven.
Well, angels are not given in marriage in the heavens, but that doesn't mean they're incapable of mating. That's the thing. Right,
exactly. And that's the key part there, is that it says, but are like the angels of God in heaven, right? And we're talking about these fallen angels, not angels in heaven. We're talking about angels that actually showed up. And the reason why I think that they weren't necessarily sent to like do evil initially was because like even early on in Genesis, you have Jesus and two angels with him eat food with Abraham, right before they go to Sodom and Gomorrah. So they're physically there. The two angels that showed up in Sodom and Gomorrah, they're there physically. I mean, the people wanted to have relations with them, right? So they must have been good-looking dudes or whatever. But they're physical. Even Jesus, after the resurrection, he ate with his disciples. He's physical. There's a physical aspect to this that you can't just spiritualize everything, And I think that's kind of the mistake people have is like, oh, it's spiritual, therefore there's no correlation with the physical. These are completely separate. And no, they're very much intertwined. And what's fascinating, and this is where we can sort of launch into the next film, is that there's even scientifically in the established scholarship, there's a breakdown happening of materialism. And we can get into that if you want to.
Sorry, Gons. I was just passing off my daughter to my wife.
That's all right.
I was holding her while she was putting my son down to sleep. So I was
it's all good.
Out for a second there. I did hear everything that you said though. There's actually some things you're touching on. You were just talking about Sodom and Gomorrah and stuff, and I guess this sort of relates, but this is kind of you and I are the same age, and going around with pop culture. Since you mentioned Noah's Ark coming out, and just I think we could probably relate on most. Pretty much all films that have come out. I want to kind of go back for just a minute to 1999. And a lot of really crazy movies in 1999. A lot of really cool, crazy movies in 99. One in particular, which is a comedy. I'm sure you're familiar with Dogma by Kevin Smith.
Yeah, I remember watching that.
Yeah. How do you feel about that now?
Oh, it's been a while since I saw that movie. Kevin Smith, right? The
Silent Bob.
Silent Bob. Yeah, those guys were pretty secular, if I recall.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The scene that I remember was I don't remember the actor's name. He's I think he was the same guy in Harry Potter.
Yes.
But he's
Metatron?
standing there. Yeah, and he's the angel, and he's
the voice of God.
Yeah, he's talking about he's asexual and all this stuff. He doesn't have genitals or whatnot. When he shows up in the bedroom of that woman or something. I don't know. I don't remember the plot exactly. I remember watching it, but I think culture definitely gives hints. I think people in Hollywood and stuff, or at least the writers, they're influenced to write a certain way and to disseminate certain information. And if you study the Freemasonic philosophy and the Luciferian philosophy that ties together all of the occult for centuries and centuries, what's being shown in Hollywood is just that. That's what's being touted. Mm-hmm. And they dress it up in a way that is very offensive to your normal Christian, right? Like it almost sort of displays how Christianity is wrong, and tries to offend it, sometimes on purpose, sometimes not so much. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, is that what you're looking for? I don't know exactly.
Well, no, I guess now that I've watched the film again after watching your film, because I saw it back in the theater. I mean, I own it. I used to be a pretty big fan of Kevin Smith's movies. But watching it, first off, there's a scene in there where you have Loki and Bartleby, and you have them in this office, basically Mooby the Golden Calf, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And in this business, or these upper business people of the Mooby the Golden Calf company, there are all these posters of Mooby on the wall. And if you pause in the right moment, there's a poster of Mooby and this cartoon golden calf, and above Mooby it says Enoch.